Okay. It's my understanding that Max told you guys I was going to be coming, and he also said that he also told you that there was a positive probability that there would be a quiz today, which there is. So the question for the quiz is, what's Max's favorite type of beer? Okay.
That's not fair.
Good. Okay, so there's no quiz, and that's not the question. But we'll talk about beer later on in the lecture. Okay. So let's get started. Okay. All right. First, is the volume okay in the back? Volume good? Okay. Yes. First question. My understanding is it will be, yes. And these get podcast after the lecture, right? They go up after the lecture, and then he posts the notes with the graphs drawn after the lecture. He will do that. My guess is he probably won't post the notes until he gets back, which will be either Monday or Tuesday. Okay. So I first have to apologize for how poorly these graphs are going to look. Never done this high-tech thing, so I have to make that disclaimer. Okay. But the first thing we're gonna talk about is the short-run market supply curve and how we can use that to generate the long run, or generate use the short-run firm supply curve to generate the market supply curve. Okay. And then to try and understand what happens when we impose a tax on the market. Okay. So let's start with stuff that you know. Okay. So I'm gonna sit down and draw some very ugly-looking graphs. But let's go ahead and just start with a normal sort of average variable cost curve. Okay. Which can look something like this. It probably is going to look better when you draw it on your exam. Okay. So this is our normal this is the firm's average variable cost curve. Okay. All right. So sort of a U-shaped average variable cost curve. What's the marginal cost curve look like? We all know that it intersects where? I'm sorry. At the minimum of the average variable cost curve. So it's going to look something like this, right? Okay. Close enough, I guess. And so this quantity here, let's use our tricky ruler here. Let's call this quantity Q1. Okay. So this is the marginal cost. And this is before we've done anything. Okay. We haven't done anything to this market yet. All right. So my understanding is that you guys talked last week about how to turn the firm's short-run supply curve into the market supply curve. Okay. Is that correct? Maybe you don't remember, but let's say that there's five firms in this market. Okay. So if the minimum of the average variable cost curve, this occurs at the quantity Q1. Let's call this P1. Okay. So how do we generate the market supply curve? We just sum horizontally, right? So if there's five firms in this market, if the price is P1, which is just right here, right? Then the aggregate amount produced by the market is going to be 5 times Q1, right? These firms are identical. So the total market quantity is going to turn out to be 5 times Q1. All right. So this is the first time I've used a ruler since I was about 5 years old. So it was quite a kick when Max brought this thing into my office. This is of course not drawn to scale on the x-axis of this graph. Let's call this 5Q1. Okay. And then let's say there's another quantity here on this individual firm supply curve. All right. Let's call this quantity Q2. That looks kind of like Q2. So if we just, this is of course going to be a point on the market supply curve. All right. If we just march over again, and this is call this price P2. All right. So now we just march over, and now we can generate our second point on the original. We haven't done any taxing yet, remember? Okay. Let's just make it look kind of like that. Okay. And say that we have these 2 points here, and just pretend that this is a straight line here. Okay. All right. And then we can just draw out what our market supply curve looks like. Okay. So this we all know. Pretty sure we all know this, right? Now we want to think about, okay, let's take this market where we have this market supply curve. And that says 5Q2. And think about a tax. Now first, what is maybe somebody knows, what is an economic logic? Why would we even want to tax this market? Is there some reason that we want to impose a tax on these firms? Is there a type of market we might think about that might make sense to tax? Any thoughts? Yes?
Something like vice, like alcohol or cigarettes.
Okay, something that does bad stuff. Something that imposes a bit of an externality, if some of you are familiar with that word. People drink alcohol, they drive cars, they do bad things. Another example might be people smoke, they put out secondhand smoke, this does bad stuff, of course. Classic externalities are another example. Polluting firms. Maybe we want to tax polluting firms that impose burdens on other people through the emissions. Okay. So let's say that there's 5 firms and we want to impose a tax on this industry equal to tau. So this is a per unit tax. So tau equals per unit tax. Okay. So each unit that the firm produces, they have to pay tau. Okay. So what does that do? Intuitively, what does that do to their cost? Say their average variable cost curve. What should it do to that curve? For instance, when they previously produced Q1 units, it cost them on the margin P1 to produce those units. Now how much does it cost? Now that we've taxed them tau dollars per unit, it's going to cost P1 plus tau, right? So how does that mean that their cost curve should shift? Up by tau, right? So easy enough. So let's try and draw a slightly less ugly average variable cost curve and say, let's do it. Wow, that's beautiful. I'm an expert already. I'm going to adopt this in my future career. Okay. And this minimum is say here. Okay. So what is this quantity is equal to tau, right? So we've just shifted up average variable cost by, I guess I wrote too fast for this silly Microsoft device. So average variable cost shifts up by tau. Marginal cost, same thing, right? Shifts up by tau. So it's going to look something like this. I should call this average variable cost plus tau. Sorry about that. And then what's this curve? Marginal cost plus tau, right? So we just shifted everything up, okay? Now how is that going to translate to the market supply curve? That was the individual firm's problem here, where we shifted everything up by tau. Now let's think about the right panel of the graph, the market supply curve. Now how's the market supply curve look post-tax? It's a pretty easy question, I think. Sure, Max has brilliant ways to get people to say, it shifts up by tau. He offers money. Okay, let's see how much. But I'm just a graduate student. He's a wealthy professor. So if you guys are a normal good, then that's bad. If you haven't learned normal goods, that's not a good joke, but that's bad for you guys. So certainly he has much higher willingness to pay than me. Okay, so this quantity, or this amount here, if we draw our line all the way across on this graph, Max is going to laugh at me when he sees how awful these graphs look. This amount here, right? Let's just continue all the way across. Is tau. This vertical difference here is tau. So we've just drawn a shift up, parallel shift up, and my taus don't work out too perfectly. They're close enough. We've just drawn this is supply, this is old supply, and this is supply after tax. All right? Okay. So firm does something bad, we want to tax them. Market supply curve and the individual firm supply curve shift up by tau. That's the punchline. Yeah, question?
On the left, will the curve still intersect Q1, or is that just the lead curve?
He right here?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. So I. Oh no, wait. Your question was, will the minimum of this curve,
Right.
this curve here, average variable cost plus tau, will the minimum of that curve
Right.
still be at Q1?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see here. You have this engineering here. So you have average variable cost equals average variable cost of Q. This is the old thing. And then all we're going to do is shift it up by tau. This is afterwards. Okay. So we haven't changed the relationship between the Q and average variable cost. So the minimum of that function will indeed be the same as it was before. Okay. Good question. You almost got me on the first question. All right. Other questions on this? Okay. Let's move on to the next thing. I apologize if I don't do pretty colors like Max does. Now let's think about a subsidy. Okay. So we just talked about a tax. A firm does something bad. So now say a firm does something good. And so we want to think about paying them to do that. I don't know what a good example is. They produce flowers, and flowers are very pretty. And they put flowers in their garden on the road, and people drive by and they enjoy seeing the flowers. So that was probably the example in the textbook when I took Econ 1 many years ago. They probably come up with something more clever than that, but that's an example. So say we want to subsidize a firm. So we just talked about a tax. Tax shifts up the supply curve. So let's think about a subsidy now. So let's start with our same graph. Let's say that it's the same thing per unit subsidy. So S is the subsidy per unit. Okay. And prior to nothing has happened yet. We're in the pre-subsidized world. Okay. So let's draw our normal graphs. Okay. In the pre-subsidized world. Let's see if we can make it look reasonably nice. Let's cheat a little bit. Ooh, oldest trick in the book. Big dot. So this is average variable cost, right? Prior. Okay. No tax yet. Okay. Ooh, my first opportunity to undo something. No, not everything. Okay. You guys get to see a beautiful drawing happen once again. Okay. All right. This is just even more beautiful. I have to move the pen away really quickly. Average variable cost, say, looks something like this. Ignore the childish artworks. Looks like something my child would have drawn if he knew how to draw. He's not old enough to know how to draw yet. So before the tax, average variable cost. Now, let's call this ugly thing marginal cost. Good. No twirlies. All right. Okay. So the subsidy, we can think of a subsidy as kind of like what? What's a subsidy? It's like the negative of a tax, right? So we're just going to go in the other direction now, right? Instead of shifting cost up, we're paying a firm to produce something. So for each unit of production, we pay them S. So this is going to make their costs go down by S, right? Easy enough. Okay, so let's call this amount S, and not too bad. And call this one average variable cost minus S. Okay. All right. So we just shifted down the average variable cost. Now the same thing is going to happen with marginal cost, right? Shift down the marginal cost by S. Let's see how good we can make this look. Ooh, not very good. Good thing I'm not the one getting evaluated here for this class. All right. Okay, so this is just going to be marginal cost minus S, right? So the vertical distance between these two things. So S is the vertical distance, right? Okay, so if we started, I'm not going to draw across with the rulers this time, but let's just note that it's about prior to the tax, the minimum of average variable cost is right about here, right? So if the supply curve looked like this, I said before tax, this is before subsidy. We're in the subsidy world now. So here's what the supply curve in the market looks like, right? We just, again, to generate the supply curve, what do we do? We just sum horizontally the individual firms' supply curves. Sum horizontally, not vertically, okay? Okay, so what's the subsidy going to do? What is tau, or sorry, what is S? S is this value right here, right? So we're just shifting supply down by S, okay? So here, not too bad. This is supply post-subsidy. Okay, all right, so tax shifts supply up by tau, subsidy shifts supply down by S. Tau denotes tax, S denotes subsidy. More or less, if you remember one, well, if you're an economic optimizer in how you study for exams, my guess would be it's just as easy to remember what a tax does and then think, okay, if I reverse everything, then I perfectly well understand how subsidy looks in this graph, okay? Questions? Yes, go ahead.
When you say it's shifting supply, you're actually talking about cost of the supply, right? Not quantity.
So what does supply come from? So supply comes from the firm's individual marginal cost function. So that's on this side of the graph, right? So we started in a cost world, okay? And so this is indeed cost. So this is cost that generates the supply function. So if you start here and think, okay, we're shifting costs down, then that's what generates the downward shift or the outward shift in supply. Okay, so it starts with a cost shift, which generates the supply shift. Good question. Other good questions? Okay, so you guys can see this thing when I leave it up here, I guess. I guess if I do this, it'll minimize it. So we talked about taxes, subsidies, and what fascinating thing is next. Okay. Oops. All right. So the previous example was a per unit subsidy or per unit tax, meaning that for each unit of production, the firm pays either tau in a tax or gets S in a subsidy. So it's based on how much you produce. So if you produce total capital, if the market produces Q units, then the total tax bill would be tau times Q, right? Or the total subsidy would be S times Q. Now, let's think about a different type of tax. Are we in subsidy world? No, we're in tax world. A lump sum tax. So rather than this case, where we're paying per unit of production, just to produce anything, you have to pay a certain amount, a big lump sum, okay? So it doesn't at all depend on how much you produce. So an example might be if somebody is, we're going to tax all the, say, cigarette producers $3 million, regardless of whether they're, I don't know the cigarette producer, Marlboro, say, who probably has got a huge market share and produces a lot, versus Camel, I guess, who's inferior and produces less. So it doesn't matter how much you produce, just a lump sum. So now let's just draw, before we've done anything, before we've imposed this lump sum tax, let's draw our graph, okay? Let's see here. Oh, that is the best yet. That's not the best yet. Okay. Hey, I get like this far from the thing, it starts dripping out. Oh. Okay. Eraser. Okay. Let's just, one more only. Okay. All right. I also have another pen that maybe isn't as less. Oh, he told me never to zoom. He said if I zoom, bad things will happen. He said he zoomed so many times here, and it's just been a disaster. So, are you baiting me? No, I'm kidding. Okay, so let's get rid of this thing. So I still have my beautiful average variable cost curve. I'm not going to label it because bad things have been happening when I label it. That's average variable cost. Okay. Before anything happens. Now, let's say we take this guy and draw our marginal cost curve. That's not too bad. All right. So shouldn't look like that. I think what's happening is, see, I get so close, it's already wanting to draw. Let's test it. Hey. Okay, so now, marginal cost curve here, average cost curve here. This is a lump sum tax, so we're just charging, doesn't matter how much you produce. Any ideas on what's going to happen to these things? The average variable cost curve here? Remember, not average cost curve, average variable cost curve. That's a strong hint. Okay, somebody said nothing, I guess. Why?